We are live. Music played with the consent of Mark Kendall from Great White. This is Moving On.
I'm going to get this shared out, all right?
Thanks, Lady J. I love you. Hi, Chris Freeman. Brittany, my veteran best friend. Nice to see you. Oh, it died on me. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Survivor Series, and I'm your host, Higgy. The Survivor Series is an original product of NoMoreHeroin.org, No More Heroin Facebook page, and No More Heroin 501c3. We have an amazing guest tonight. Now, the Survivor Series is geared to promoting success stories from all angles of the addiction issue that's decimating our country today. So we like to feature people from different parts of the country, different walks of life, different vocations. And we have an amazing guest tonight joining us from Dallas, Texas. We have Marty McLeod, who is a family recovery peer support specialist. Is that right? Did I get the title right?
That's close enough.
And as my co-host, once again, Dwayne Louder from Sober for Life.
Hi, everybody. Higgy, how are you, man?
Doing good, bro. Thanks
I'm
for
making sure I got this shared out.
Are you shared, bro?
There we go. Yeah, we're good. I got it on everything.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted. Can I say something real fast?
You can say all you want.
Marty.
Hey,
I have access to that secret page of Higgy's where, we do our testing and all that. Yeah. And I was listening in, and, you sent this to me. I didn't even know it was coming, and it came. You had said, appreciation for everything that we're doing over here. And I love that, man. That was really cool to get that. But then I heard you say that this was like custom made for us. And I was like,
made
wow.
That for you.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. So thank you so much. That just made it worth $1 million. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love that shirt. I love that design. It's the reflection design. So
and then we got in our pocket over here, we have the other item that you sent.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. The coin.
There it is. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Yes, and the hats. Yes.
Yeah.
Recovery is real. Recovery is real. ShopRecoveryStuff.com, folks.
Yeah.
Amazing quality merchandise. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Marty, for
the
gifts, the coin, the amazing shirts.
You need that when you come to Dallas.
I'm coming. I'm gonna buy a
Look
lot.
at behind her. Look at all the stuff behind her, Higgy. We got to go shopping.
Now listen.
ShopRecoveryStuff.com. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
And Higgy, I have something I want to tell you about the hat that you just showed. In fact, that particular design, that's called the Power of Recovery. And, a lot of my designs are inspired. And so that particular design, all of the proceeds that we donate for that are dedicated specifically to going for people newly in recovery to help them attain sober living. So I've actually co-branded on a shirt like that with the University of Delaware, and those students in the University of Delaware had everything to do with helping people across the country get into sober living. And that's just what recovery is. It's just so cool that it works like that. I love that. I love that we get to do that with that design too.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's for such a good cause. You know, your business is multifaceted with multifaceted goals, and your mission is amazing, and everything you do comes straight from the heart. You know, good quality loving from a good quality person.
Some of it's just from my crazy head. That helps.
So please tell us, who is Marty McLeod?
Oh wow, that's scary. So I am the mom of a person with SUD, and you know, Higgy, the other day when we were talking, you asked me, we talked a little bit about, you know, how did I get where I was? And I think the most important part is what I told you was that, you know, sometimes our calling calls us and it finds us. And, you know, if you would have told me 10 years ago, hey, Marty, you're going to be designing addiction recovery items and advocating for families, and you'd be a certified family recovery coach specialist, I would, based on what I understood and knew about addiction then, I would have laughed you out of the room. I might have slapped you. But I would have definitely laughed at you and said, you are an idiot. But here I am today. And, you know, it's by the way of both my experience and my business that I got to where I am today. So creatively and as well as advocating for families. You guys both know me well enough to know that I love families, and families need support in going through their loved one's addiction, and I found that they didn't have that. So just over time, I started to decide I've got to make it so that I can help families as well. So, and I have just as big a mouth to be able to do it. So I'm more than happy to do that. So. I have no problem being called controversial.
Controversial.
I'm okay with that.
You're doing a lot of good stuff down there.
Well, thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate that. Thank you, y'all.
I get busy at times over here, but I see everything that you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Chris Freeman from Soberworks.com.
Yes.
Soberworks.com. He is the one that connected me to you.
Yes.
He's an amazing man with amazing format platform. Does great web work with Adam from Adam Designs It, right, Dwayne?
Yeah, it's AdamDesignsIt.com. Yep.
They make phenomenal websites. If you check out nomoreheroin.org, you'll see the work that they do with the three-dimensional artwork. SoberForLifeRadio.com is streaming 24/7, so you can listen to amazing music and check out our website. You know, we're open to constructive criticism on what to add and what not, but please check out nomoreheroin.org and
our websites too, Higgy. He does all our websites.
They do,
our new one coming out.
What about that More Than One Way website?
Yeah, and morethanoneway.com. Yeah,
I look forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a brand new one coming out in about hopefully a couple of weeks. It'll be done, and yeah, it's the best work it's the best work he's done so far. He told me that. So
that works hard.
I can't wait to see your new platform, your Radical Radio format.
Radical Radio. Look out.
Radio.
Oh, that's cool. I'll be excited to see that, Dwayne. Hey, I do want to say hello to Chris too. Chris is a friend of mine, and I love you, Chris. And
yeah, we all love Chris.
Yeah, Chris loves families too. So thank you, Chris.
He does.
Chris is getting ready to move to the UK. Marty, did you know that?
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, well, he's still going to be a part of everything. He's actually going over there to be with Adam Mitchell and work together with them. And so
I always like the idea that he's close, you know.
Yeah,
he'll always be close.
I know. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
So Marty, you're not in this alone. Can you tell us about who your business partner is per se?
My business partner is actually myself, but my and Mark just was like, "Oh, Marty, he doesn't want to be on camera." But my awesome husband, Mark, he is his own person in his own world, but he fully supports me. I remember the day when I told him, I said, Mark, I have this design. In fact, it's my flagship design. It's the Y'all, Recovery is Real Y'all design. I had it in my head for a couple years. And I was just I knew that once I could see it on a shirt, I could see it on a pin, I could see it on different things. And I kept telling him, I'm not going to do it, Mark, because I know that the minute that I put that on a shirt, all the floodgates are going to open and I'm going to be doing another business. And he said, Marty, we finally came to the realization, and we had spent, at that point in time, we had worked really hard as family members of a person with SUD. We had worked really hard to get out of the chaos of active addiction. We'd worked really hard on our own personal recovery as family members. And here I was with this design just going around in my head, and I donated designs to some of the fellowships and other private organizations. And he just said to me one day, he said, Marty, he said, we're Christians. And he just said, if God's taken us there, if God's taken you there, Marty, it's not going to matter where he takes you. You're going to be okay. Because I really was hesitant to get back into that arena. I just wanted to kind of be done with it. And yet I had this design. So I knew that I had to put it on a shirt, and I did. And that was the history of getting Shop Recovery stuff started. But the bottom line is, Mark comes with me. He takes off work every single time that I have a pop-up store. My pop-up stores are really large. I don't know if you see them, I've seen them online, but they're really large, and we actually utilize people from Sober Living to help us set them up. I think you guys know that in exchange for me paying rent, they help us do setup and tear down, and some of them come and help me in the shop as well, in the pop-up stores. But Mark takes off work, and he takes off from his job to come and help me do every pop-up store that we do. He travels with me, and he's just a great guy. And he loves people in recovery, and people in recovery love him as well. So, one of his favorite people, I know you guys know Jam Alker, and Mark just loves Jam. He just loves him. So anyway, Mark is here. I don't know if he'll step on. Do you mind if he steps on camera? I want him to say hello. That's
Absolutely.
Okay.
That would be wonderful.
This is my husband,
Hello.
Mark.
Hello.
How are you, Mark?
Hi, Mark.
Good. Doing good.
Enough of that.
Yeah, he had enough of that, didn't he?
Enough of
He
that.
wants to come to a pop-up store. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Um,
So, can you elaborate on what your mission is as a family recovery peer support specialist? What is your mission, your goal? How did you get
Okay.
to where you are? Can you
give it was kind of by way of both my experience, and I share this often with families, that when my husband and I have an only child who became addicted to drugs in college. And when we just when the very first time that I called for help in 2006 for my family, on the other end of the line was a person who said, well, do you have cash to pay for that? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea how much it costs. And the person laughed, gave a little bit of a kind of a chuckle, and said, well, you don't have enough, and hung up on me.
Oh, really?
And Mark and I, that was back in 2006, and Mark and I were just kind of stunned, sitting there looking at each other, and we just decided I told Mark, I said, we better start learning about addiction, or we're going to be dragged under a bus to our death, because addiction at that point had us by the tail. It had us on a leash, feeding it, and we knew we needed to get off that roller coaster ride. We didn't know how. We didn't know. We didn't understand anything. We didn't know anything about addiction. So we just set ourselves to learning about addiction. And I think that was kind of the spark that started me moving forward. And then, so one of the times that our son was in a rehab in a treatment center, I couldn't find a card to send to him. And so obviously I'm a creative person. And so I designed a card and I sent it to him, and then I designed another and then another. And finally someone asked me, hey, where'd you get that card? I'd like to buy one. And I thought of all the 25 million cards I had to buy to get the one I wanted to send to my kid in rehab. So I said, hey, I'll sell you a couple. So I ended up kind of starting doing some design work. And then as time went on, in 2017, I just really felt like I knew that there were people out there that I knew that we couldn't, there were so many people dying every day from addiction, you know, that people were dying. And yet recovery was a secret. It was like this secret that nobody would talk about. And I thought, there are people out there who are living recovery out loud, but they're not, there's nothing to give them to make recovery look normal. So I decided in 2017 to take some of my designs. After I did the Y'all design, I just felt like I needed to bring it to an open, more of an open area to help people take recovery where they're at in their own life, in their own real time, where they could and just be the vehicle that could allow them to share their recovery. So the mission, my company's mission, and I know you guys know it and I know it by heart, which is to give people in recovery the opportunity to share recovery with a positive self-association to recovery, and by doing so, help those still suffering. So my company's mission is actually twofold. It's to give people in recovery the opportunity to live recovery out loud and share their recovery with a positive self-association to recovery. Because I believe that there's no greater power that we give people in recovery than to give them confidence and the ability to take recovery, open an open door to share recovery, you know. And it's amazing how a car sticker at the gas pump can do that. You know, I have car stickers, and in fact, somebody has stopped us before and said, hey, I have a couple years. You know, we're sitting there going, yeah, we got no years, but I can talk about recovery with you, you know, because we're not people in recovery, but we can start to share about that. So that's how I started. You know, that's how I started. And then once I opened Shop Recovery Stuff, I started getting lots of messages from family members that said, you know, that just started talking to me about their situation and telling me their story, and or how they wanted to get, you know, something for their loved one who was in recovery. And what really caught my attention, I know you guys both know this, but is that I'm from rural America. I'm actually from a rural community in Kansas. And so I have a special heart for rural America where there are no services. There are literally no services. And a lot of times the family members have to be the educators for law enforcement, for I have families who've called me in rural America, and they're asking me, hey, you know, my adult child got picked up, they're in the jail, but I know that alcohol is, you know, they're drunk, and they're a person with severe AUD, which is alcohol use disorder, and yeah, I've heard that's dangerous. Is that dangerous? So a lot of times they have to go to the jail and share with the sheriff or share with the jailer, hey, this is dangerous. It could be dangerous. The person could die. My loved one could die there. I'm not just trying to get them off. I'm not just trying to be the mom, you know, that's crying, trying to get my son out of jail. It can actually be dangerous. So equipping in this next year, my mission is actually, if you listen to my, I try every year at New Year's to do kind of a mission statement of what I'm going to be working on the next year. And I'm actually going to be stepping back a little bit from my design desk for stock designs for Shop Recovery Stuff. It'll still be open. We'll still have some things, and I'll still be doing custom work. And also, I do want to give a shout out. I'll be helping with the Big Texas Rally for Recovery this year. It's right in our backyard. And if I'm correct, I think that they have
Nice. That's beautiful. Listen, Marty, I want to let you know that there are people in the comments.
Okay.
So they would like to know if you can design shirts for them and their causes. Is that something that you do?
I do, yes. And if you go on shoprecoverystuff.com, you'll see where it says custom or reseller. I do reseller. They can co-brand with me. I do, like, for instance, I think the coin that I sent you is the recovery stamp coin, Dwayne.
Yeah.
I sent you the live life get recovery coin, I think, Higgy. But the recovery
No,
stamp
that's the
coin,
one I got too.
okay, I co-branded with a college in Minneapolis, and I did their logo. I redesigned their logo for a coin for them and minted a coin using my stamp recovery design for them as well. So I do co-branding, but I do custom work as well. So
And that question was specifically Mike Todd asked that, so I hope Mike's still listening.
there you go.
Yeah.
Just go on if they go on my website and reach me through that, they can reach me through there.
Before you go any further,
Yes.
Who and where did you get your education to be a peer support specialist?
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if Rich Jones and I got together? That's just so.
Jones from.
I love
Now
that.
I'm gonna go change my T-shirt and be part of the cartel next.
Yes, Recovery Cartel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, when early on, when Mark and I were when I was starting to learn about addiction, and we really set our year. And I really, Higgy, one of the big things that I want to make sure that I do tonight is give families some information that they can actually use, because they need peace. They need something that they can hang on to give peace. So one of the things that I did that was really important was that I became educated. I really looked at that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I really learned, and I saw a post early on. I don't even remember what year it was, but I saw a post, and it was by Richard Jones, and I think he had the Recovery Cartel at that time, and it was something about family recovery support specialists. I'm thinking, okay, I want to do that. So I called them at Faces and Voices of Recovery in Greenville, Favor Greenville. I called them, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't have the class yet. Okay, I'll call you again next month. So I'd call him every so often. And so finally, when he had the class, I just decided, hey, I'm going to go and take that class. But he was actually one of the first people to say, hey, you know what? Family supports need family peers, need family peers. And I agree with that. That was actually one of the problems that I kept having, although I started in Nar-Anon because that's what you were supposed to do as a family member, Nar-Anon or Al-Anon. And I love both those groups. I have wonderful friends in both those arenas of helps for families, but I couldn't reconcile some of the things that I couldn't reconcile with some of the things in that I couldn't logistically. And logistically, I would hear a grandma that would be sitting there with all the stoic faces looking at her, wondering, what am I going to do, because I have to take custody of my grandchildren? Mm-hmm. Where were her supports? So the logistics side of that, and then also just the families walking the road together of not just the logistics, but the education and the information about addiction.
What does that look like exactly for small communities? How do they build? How do small communities build a good family support recovery?
I think and that's a great question. I think that, and that's one of the things that I'll be doing this year. I'm real excited about doing. I'm actually going to go try to travel and look at, I've been a lot of places, but to go look at different organizations and what they do well, and maybe help create menus for families and family support groups. So if you have a really small, let's say that there's a really small rural area, or even bigger, I mean, however big they want to be. So I envision it like this, that let's say you have a small rural community and they actually go to, they need help. They need help in supporting one another, because they face a whole different kind of stigma. You know, if in Dallas, Texas today, if I said, hey, I need to go for treatment or I need help, I would have 50 million people behind me going, good, go get it. That's awesome. We're so proud of you. We're happy for you. But in rural America, everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other. Half the time, everybody owns something because you have to keep the town going. A lot of times the ISD, the Independent School District, is the largest employer. So if you have people who are within that employment, they're struggling, that, you know, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody knows, but there's the families there. So to me, if they're structuring, so let's say you get a couple over here that they say, hey, we need some support here. We need to talk to, maybe they're the people who need to go help them have that, build the relationship with law enforcement so that they can train and teach law enforcement. Maybe another group, that another set of family comes together. They all come together in the end, but they're each learning and getting better and helping in certain areas. Maybe somebody needs to talk to the medical profession and help them understand. Maybe one family says, okay, we'll take over. Here's all the services that are available. You know, I know I've shared this before, I think with Chris, about there's an organization called Grand Families in Utah. And what they do is they literally help families, grandparents who are having to adopt or take custody of their children. Well, maybe those services are available in a community, but they're so spread out that nobody knows about them. So
and that's such a growing concern and a growing need today with all the overdose deaths.
Yes.
You know, there needs to be services for the grandparents that are raising their grandchildren as their own.
And exactly. And the families who are really working to support their loved ones who are in recovery, in their recovery path, whatever that recovery path looks like. So for instance, one of the great things that Mark and I really enjoy about in my business, as well as in the advocacy work that I get to do, is we get to meet all these people who are in recovery. And I just the other day, I talked with a young man who helped me do a setup at, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was. It was in Houston. He helped me set up for the National Collegiate Recovery Conference. And he was one of our helpers from A Sober Living. I talked to him just the other day. You know, we get to build that relationship. The people who are my models are people, you know, who are in recovery for the most part. Some of them are just supporting people. Actually, Higgy, the gentleman who is on my website modeling the shirt you have on, he is actually an Army recruiter and one of the people who support us as we support other people.
Veteran brother.
Yes, he is. We love him. Listen, I had a heat press one time that I had to lift up, and I called my neighbor. He's my neighbor too, actually. I called him. I said, "Could you come help us lift this up?" He took it right out of the box and set it on.
Like it was nothing. Dwayne, you look like you have a question.
Well, you know, I want to share something that I have ran into. In fact, yesterday and part of today, I ran into this problem. A problem that I'm running into is we're getting a lot of single mothers that are reaching out to us that have children.
Yeah.
For instance, today I was dealing with a young lady. She's got 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
She's not with the father any longer of the children. Single parent, yeah, and she lives at home. And there were some issues at home that didn't work out well with the kids staying there. And you know, that's a problem that I've ran into a lot of. Yeah. Is they're afraid to go to treatment and get help because they don't want to leave their kids or lose their kids. I know this might be a little off subject, but I want to share that today because it's been a problem that I've been
oriented. No,
it's been a problem that I've been running into, Higgy, and it's
that's very much. And then a lot of times, Dwayne, if I can say this, a lot of times too, the families on the other side of that, the families are back there trying to support them the best that they can.
Yeah.
But, you know, in addiction, we all know that addiction is a cruel disease.
Or they don't even have support there, that it's not a safe place for the children to go there either. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly right.
I want to put this out there right now with No More Heroin being a certified nonprofit. Now we're collecting resources. If anyone in the comments has resources that are sober living for single parents with children, we need more family-oriented, sober communities, I believe.
Yes, and you know, I will say that's exactly right. And I believe, if I'm right, I do know that Oxford houses have mom and child houses. Now, I don't know if they have them in your area. I would have to. They might.
Not around here. They don't.
They don't. They fill up.
No. In fact, the Oxford houses that we deal with around here won't even allow the children to stay the night, like on the weekends and stuff.
Oh,
so,
really? Well, you know, hang in there, because they may be coming. I don't know. I don't want to. I certainly don't speak for them.
It's a tough situation. You just don't. Your hands are tied. You don't know what to do. They want to get treatment, and they're afraid they're going to lose their kids, and
that vicious addiction will keep you out there doing what you do, because it lies to you. Even though you know, and you want better, and you want better for your family, your addiction will not allow that unless you can separate yourself from the use and get it in a safe environment.
Higgy, one of the I'm going to share two things. One of the best videos that I share with families when I start to help them is there's a video that Dr. Nora Volkoff did with she's actually doing the brain scan of a gentleman who is addicted to meth. And I share this with the families so that they can get perspective, because it really gives great perspective to show that she said in a speech one time, I like what she said and I use it often. She said, you know, addiction is the thief of free will.
That's right.
Isn't that so true? And the video that she shows, I'll be able to send you the link, but the video that I really like it because it gives families perspective. This gentleman goes in for a brain scan. She's with him the whole time. And then she's sitting there, Dr. Nora Volkoff. If Dr. Nora Volkoff was sitting with me and telling me, hey, Marty, I want to tell you the results of your brain scan, I would be sitting here like this, you know?
Right.
And the interviewer asks him, what do you think about what she had to say? Because she goes over his brain scan with him and how meth is actually, how it's affecting his brain. And the gentleman looked at him and he said, you know, he looked at the interview and he said, I don't know. I think they might have kind of skewed the results, you know, to make for a good film. And shows exactly how addiction lies to that person. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm visiting with the family, you know, and when I visit with the person who's actually directly affected by addiction, how many times they'll tell me, you know, Marty, you know, I don't get it. You know, I see what's going on. My family tells me, my friends tell me, who are trying to get me to get help. And yet for some reason, I don't believe them. And this is something that's that consistent part. And if you notice, like on my website, on my about page, that's where I share the advocacy part. And I think that's important. And I share that often. And I tell families, this is where I tell them, addiction is not who you are.
Absolutely.
I don't care what it's telling you. It's telling that person, addiction is not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell that same thing to family members when they get caught up in because, you know, the same exact, the brain scans are there also for the family. So those same areas in the brain ignite, just as a person who's when they're using in the brain areas ignite and light up in a brain scan, that happens also for people who are the family members and loved ones who are affected by addiction as they get caught up in the addiction. Because a lot of times family members think, you know, what happens when we have a family trauma or a family trauma? What happens? we circle around and that's as family, especially as parents or spouses, we come around that and we try to fix it. We try to help that. And then all of a sudden, you know, we realize we may not be able to help that. Or, you know, we get labeled as a fixer, enabler, all of that. And that might be a whole nother session.
I want to jump to a separate topic real quick. Okay. Before I forget, because this is really, really important. When you were trying to find your loved one treatment, good quality treatment, what were the roadblocks and hurdles that you had to figure out to get your loved one what he needed?
Yeah, well, let me help you with that. Let me tell you with that. I actually took notes because this is what I think is so important. That's changed from the time that we were actually helping our loved one get treatment or get help, from then until now. You know, that was 2006 when we started down that journey, and a lot has changed since then. You know, there was back at that time, there was one pathway only. And if you didn't fit in that box, you need to walk out. And I want to tell you this today. This gets me going like a Rich Jones car rant faster than anything on this earth. When I have a parent who calls me up, or I see on a post in a parent Facebook feed when they're saying my loved one got kicked out or voluntarily left a treatment center, and I'm not trying to dog on treatment centers at all, because we obviously need treatment centers for that, but they left and they're a known heroin or opiate person addicted to opiates, and they get left out, no Narcan in their hand, and they're just escorted out the door with no, hey, you know, no phone call, no nothing, no phone call, no nothing, no Narcan in their hand. They should be given Narcan before they walk out that door. They should be trained when they go to a treatment center how to use Narcan. That should be given to them. I hear that almost, I'm going to say at least 3 times a week. I'll have a parent who will tell me, hey, I got a call from my adult kid and they got kicked out of a treatment center. They left a treatment center, and they called me and they were just standing out the gate, out of the gate. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, what are they? No Narcan. Really? I can't believe that. That's absurd to me. So I kind of went off on that. I'm sorry I got going on that, but I think that we have to equip people with knowledge. We have to equip people, the things that I didn't know that I know now. And, you know, I have notes, and I want to make sure I'm actually putting on my glasses, Piggy.
What up,
You know it's serious when I'm putting on my glasses.
This is how bad our neighborhood is.
Hold on one second, Dwayne. Let me get you solo. What is it?
Yeah, this is how bad our neighborhood is. I carry this everywhere I go.
That is, yep.
What?
Thank you. Narcan.
In today's world, you need multiple of those.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I got multiple of them. One in my pocket. I only carry one at a time.
I have 3 nasal doses in my car, and 2 more in my computer bag that I carry around, because in South Florida, you can find someone overdosed in traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's getting like that here where we're at. It's bad, man.
And you know that Narcan, the nasal spray comes in two doses. One thing, and thank you for bringing that up. If I can kind of sidebar here from what we're talking about, Higgy, are you okay with that?
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I want to speak to families about that, because one of the things that I thought was really interesting when I went to the naloxone training that I went to, Mark Kinsley, who I love as an instructor, he was an excellent instructor with Tony. He said, you know, one of the myths that families need to understand is that one of the myths that there is out there for families is that they shouldn't talk to their loved one about how much they're using, what kind of drugs they're using, and what they're dosing. what's going on with them. And he said, because families mistakenly think that, that they'll trigger, quote unquote, they'll trigger their loved one to want to use. And he, I like the way he said it. He said, newsflash, if a person's in active addiction, they want to use. It's just that simple.
Absolutely.
And, what he said was so important, and I think that's important to share with families, is that it's important that you ask your loved one, what are you using? How much are you using? How often are you using? Because let's say that they overdose and the opiates aren't their addiction. And all of a sudden they're using Narcan and it's not working. They're wasting time before they call 911.
Yeah. The hurdle there is to get an addict to tell you the truth. Well,
Yeah, well, I think they'll tell you what I find when somebody is sitting down with the person. Now, don't get me wrong. When the family sits down and says, if you sit down with your loved one and you say, look, Joey, whatever the kid's name is or person's name is, look, we just want to keep Narcan. We want to keep it at our house. If you're living here, we just want to know, do we need to keep Narcan here? If they're not going to tell you every single little bit about, but they are going to tell you, hey, yeah, you need to keep Narcan here. I found most people to be pretty honest about yes or no, even as far as that goes. But listen, I start at the top and say, where are you at? Let's go from there. And, I do.
The old urine screen out.
I don't do that. I'm like, this is what I tell people. Listen, if I have you in my home and I have to ask you, you're an adult, and I have to ask you to do a drug screen, you don't need to be at my house.
Absolutely.
I'm mean about that when it comes to that. My boundary is that my husband and I came to the point that we won't have active addiction in our house or in our life. So, and there's a difference between sobriety. There's a difference between just not using drugs, sobriety, and recovery. And so I really enjoyed mostly when we get to, I get to walk in the arena of recovery. But anyway, so I'll go back to the actual question you asked me. Thank you for letting me sidebar on that, because I think that's important that families know that they ask, that's a lot of times in the recovery arena, we assume that people know things that they don't. We assume that they know terminology. We assume that they know what SUD and AUD means. SUD means
okay. Go ahead, elaborate on that. Get what those abbreviations.
I think that we assume that people know things that they don't. It's kind of like having addiction. I call it addictionese.
What is SUD?
SUD is substance use disorder, addiction, or and all of that's AUD, alcohol use disorder or alcoholism. Nobody wants to. They don't call anybody an addict anymore now. People, there's appropriate times that's available, and the etiquette is in the dictionary. You can actually find that on Facing Addiction. You can go in there and find that a dictionary. But here I want to talk on that too, and because I'm going to advocate a little bit here for families. I'm going to get on my rant again. I've seen where the addiction language has changed in multiples. Dealing with addiction on the addiction side. No one calls anyone an addict anymore. I wouldn't dare call someone an addict. Now I might have friends who are in recovery who might call themselves an addict.
The reason being is, does that reference them in
I understand.
Present, like as an active addiction? If you call someone an addict, is that deemed negative?
I think that depends on the person. I would certainly speak with someone like for you, Higgy, or you, Dwayne. I would say, you're a person in recovery.
Thank you.
I can remember.
I would recovery.
I'm going to tell my age on this one, but I remember when I first started using and drinking, it was the definition of an addict, or as you're calling it, UAD or
AUD or SUD.
Yeah, it's changed so much from the time I started. I remember junkie. I remember all kinds of, and early in it, it was, you know, the words were just completely derogatory, I guess I want to call them. Just like, wow, really? I'm what? You know?
Well, you know,
so
the way
it's
I want to speak
getting
to that.
easier for people, you know, by saying like what you're saying, it's getting easier for people to accept that because it's not such a bad name, and it's
Right.
which helps. It's major help.
Yeah, you know, I've never heard a diabetic be called a junkie,
Yeah.
a sugar junkie. You know, I've never heard that before. I mean, so I think that making recovery normal is an important part of the disease of addiction, because we can't just stay talking about, not that we can't talk about addiction, or not that we shouldn't, but we have to move to that recovery model in order to make recovery normal. And I think that, you know, while all that addiction has changed, and while the shift is coming to recovery based for the addiction side, on the family side, families still get called, you know, I was visiting with actually a peer specialist. I apologize. I'm not going to say that was a peer specialist. I'm not completely sure what the credentials were, but I was speaking with someone, and they were talking about a family, and they automatically assumed these different family members into these roles. You know, well, she's the enabler, he's the enforcer, and this person didn't even know these people. And what's dangerous about that, so what's not changed on the family side is that, you know, families are still being called an enabler. They're being called codependents. They might have some of those behaviors in their walk, but it doesn't mean they don't deserve to be called an enabler or a codependent any more than a person who's experiencing addiction should be called.
A lot of people are throwing around terms that they don't understand. There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of hatred out there. And this is why we do what we do here with No More Survivors. We're trying to educate people, bring topics to the forefront, to empower people, families, you know, communities with knowledge and facts from reputable, reliable sources like you. Everybody, if you've just tuned in, we're talking with Marty McLeod. She's a family recovery peer support specialist from Dallas, Texas. My co-host is Dwayne Louder from SoberForLifeRadio.com, and we're talking about family issues. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments. If we don't see them or get to them, we will definitely go through the comments and answer your questions to the best of our ability.
You bet. You know, Higgy, you asked me, I think one of the things that are really important for families, that's changing for families, or that families are having, we are becoming our own advocates.
Yes.
In that, so for instance, you know, it used to be that families would just take whatever somebody said and they just do whatever was said, and then they'd end up, if it didn't work out, they'd be the blame. They'd get the blame. I still see that sometimes. So what we're able to do now, and what I do a lot of times, a lot of what I do is help families vet treatment centers or vet sober living, or help them figure out what works for them. Because, you know, you asked me earlier about what was working. How did I help my loved one get help? Number one was that I didn't just stand down to every single thing that was said. And I know that I've shared this with you, and I learned from my mistakes, you know, and I'm going to put my glasses back on because I want to go over that about vetting. So, you know, when you're vetting family members who are out there, when you are vetting, when you're looking at sober living, when you're looking, I don't care even if it's a sober living treatment center, a Facebook page that you are interested in, you know, especially when you get to that website, do your due diligence. You know, it's a consumer beware. Do your due diligence. When I was looking for help back in 2006, when I started looking for help for my loved one was hard enough. But looking for help for my family was like digging for a needle in a haystack. Today, you can see that it looks like it's a dime a dozen. It looks like it's a dime a dozen to get family family, you know, or, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be as gentle as I can, but I know that things have to change, because a lot of times treatment centers, and again, I don't want to dog on treatment centers, but because we do need them. But treatment centers will say, we have a family program, quote unquote. However, you know, think about that. You know, you really think about what that means. So let's say that you go to a 12-step family. You know, that's the other thing is today we have treatment that can be multifaceted. Back in that day, the only thing that was available was 12-step. Today we have smart recovery. We have medically assisted treatment. We have, I remember when I called, my son was on, early in his recovery, he was on Suboxone when it first started. And I remembered calling a sober living house to ask if they accepted Suboxone. I wouldn't have minded if the sober living owner would have said, hey, you know what? There's not a lot out yet. We don't know a lot about it. I don't feel real comfortable with it. But instead, I got this long dissertation about how, you know, my son wasn't really clean and sober because he was on Suboxone. I would have appreciated just him saying, hey, I don't understand. It's okay to say, I don't understand. I say that every day,
Absolutely.
you know, but I'm going to find out and I can learn. We can learn how. So that being said, you know, we have medically assisted treatment that's working great for people. So,
Marty, could you scoot to your right a little bit? Your camera is
I'm
moving.
sorry.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
I was getting too thin.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I was really into that. I was
You're
really
moving grooving over there.
sorry about that. So I'm sorry about that. So, you know, when you're looking, so if people are looking, you know, I've even had people that I know in the recovery arena who are, they're in the recovery arena and they'll say, I don't like this particular organization. And then the next thing you know, I'll see them liking a post or be on a Facebook page that is basically authored by that organization through another organization. So
You see a lot of that.
and look at that organization. I know one organization that I've actually called out, and I won't say their name nationally like that. You know, I really would like to, but I won't. But anyway, I will. I'll say that I called them out because what happened was they're basically just a marketing firm. When I went to go to that website, look who owns that company. You know, at the end of the day, you know, SoberWorks is run by Chris Freeman, a person in recovery. When you go down, No More Heroin is you, Higgy. Shop Recovery Stuff is me. Go down, you know, when you go down and you look, one place that I looked at, they're for families. They're there to support families. When I read all the information, it was basically just stuff you could go on to the NIDA, National Institute of Drug Abuse, and look at that information. It's basic yap. And then when I got down and I went down and I looked at the information, it simply was a marketing firm.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on their website and I signed up, and for $137, they could tell me how to talk to my loved one.
Wow.
And so what I'm saying is families have to, we've started to realize that we have to take charge of being our own advocate, because a lot of times we are the people who are helping pay for treatment for our loved one, no matter what that treatment is. And we have to take charge. So look at that. Make sure that you understand your right as a consumer. Make sure that you understand that when you go, you know, and I know I shared this with you, Higgy, that, you know, I've never gone and bought a $50,000 vehicle that I didn't get in and drive the car and ask what the warranty was and what's the refund policy and how many, you know, what's the warranty on the drivetrain? What do you do? You know, it's asking them, what's the refund policy?
You ask probing questions.
Yeah, I asked that. Oh, that's so nice how you say that. I'm like, what's your refund policy? What's your refund policy?
Acquiring money. I want to know.
Yeah, is your treatment center, is it evidence-based? Is it, you know, what's
We
the
try to do that here.
I'm sorry.
With the clean and sober living homes that we use, I personally get involved. I try to go over there, you know, like LIV. We've been posting a lot about LIV Clean and Sober Living in St. Peters, Missouri. I personally know the lady and the husband that own that now, and I hang out with them. I go over there and visit with the guy's house a lot. You know that because we're taking other people's money and placing these people into those houses. Well, I want to make sure that where we're sending them.
Yeah, there's accountability to that.
Myself when it comes to that kind of stuff too.
So you have to vet these places as best as possible. Man. Given your crisis situation, everybody is in crisis, needing help, hope, and there are people that are not good out there trying to on people's misery, and they don't care. You know,
there's a whole bunch of them, Iggy.
They set up call centers and send clients to the highest bidder, and they get paid per client, and it's turned into a grimy business.
And you know, Higgy, this is the other thing. That's the one thing where they can protect themselves throughout, because a lot of times I'll hear people say, you know, we didn't know what to do, and they were there, and all of a sudden, you know, it all fell apart. Here's how you master that. Here's what, you know, I remembered my husband and I, one of the times that our son went to treatment, and things weren't going well. Not based on the treatment center, but based on our son in that treatment center. And so I went to the treatment center, and they didn't share the information. They waited till there was about 1 week left to share this information, that had they asked us from the start, that's another thing. If the treatment center doesn't know, the treatment center or whatever you're looking at, if they don't know anything about your history, and I'm going to talk about family recovery programs here in a minute, if they aren't asking anything about you as a family or any of that information, and then all of a sudden they call you up and want to blame you for things in a roundabout way, or you go to the family program and you're ending up being the blame and things don't look right. I got called for that to happen. I got lied about. My husband and I got lied about, and we had to literally go to this treatment center. And I sat there and I said, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me on the day that this happened? And you know what I was told? Because our son was over 18 and he hadn't signed any consent that we could see that information.
HIPAA.
Exactly. That's the deal. And I tell people that if you're a person in addiction going into a treatment center or for any treatment at all, I don't care who it is. If you're going to another a doctor's office, a psychiatrist, anywhere that you are taking mind-altering medication, you need to have someone who can be with you to sign that HIPAA form that you trust, that can know that information so that they can be your advocate. It's also proactive on your part if you're going in for treatment. But the other part, it's proactive for the people who are paying. And a lot of times the families are the people who are paying. So I think I told you that, Higgy, one time, the next time my husband and I were at a treatment center, and our son was at the treatment center and doing the intake, and we got kind of treated that condescending treatment. You just stay out here, be ready to pay, but you stay out here. And let me just tell you, families feel like that. You just stay out here, be ready to pay, but you just stay out here. You don't need to know anything. And my husband, Mark, he's so calm. I'm the whoa person, but Mark's the calm one, and he's just sitting there. And I said, Mark, what do you just let them do that? I thought we agreed that we already had told our son, listen, we're not helping financially with any more treatment unless you sign the HIPAA form. He's like, oh, I got no problem with that. So Mark just looked at me and he goes, I don't really care what they talk about. See this strip? It's not sliding through anything until I see that HIPAA form signed. So I'm telling people who are either going in for treatment and the families, it's in your best interest to make sure that you have someone on that HIPAA form who can be your advocate if you can. I wouldn't leave my loved one in the hospital.
No.
I mean, hello. It's the same thing it's just good, and that's good business. So the other thing I wanted to make sure is, making sure that you interview. Go if you can and interview that treatment center or that sober living. I've had families. I've had really good sober living places. Really good. I know some wonderful sober living owners who are absolutely wonderful, and my friends. I know wonderful people who run treatment centers and detox centers, and are appalled when I tell them sometimes at what happens to families. But go and interview them. Don't let all the little letters after the name fool you. Go and look at them. Look at what they're marketing. I had one place that was a sober living place that was really expensive, and they shared that they had Dave Ramsey. They did the Dave Ramsey program.
Right.
You know what that really ended up consisting of? The first 30 days that the people were there, the people would go by and pop a tape in of an old Dave Ramsey, and it wasn't Dave Ramsey Financial Peace. And I'm sorry, but somebody in the first 30 days of their sobriety, should they really be learning how to handle cash?
No, not right. No.
They know how to handle cash.
Spend it.
Exactly. So, making sure of that. And then the other thing is looking for contradictions. I went to interview I think this was a sober living one time. And, we started out and I asked, well, what's the average stay? And the average stay, I think, was 6 to 7 months. And then later on in the conversation, as we were doing the tour of the sober living house, the director, who really is the salesperson, know who the real players of the game are. What are they really? The director told me, I met someone who lived there, and the person said he'd lived there 11 months. And I said, well, wait a minute. I thought you said that the average stay was 6 to 7 months. And the director said, well, I guess his parents really cared about his recovery, so they made sure that he could stay here. That's manipulative.
Sure is.
That's just sure manipulative. So, if you see those contradictions, if you have them in that period in time, you're going to have them once they're in there, and it only will get worse. So, the last thing that I think that I really want to share for families is making sure, I want to talk about the family programs. So when they say that they have family programs, I'm just going to say it this way, back in that time, if it's a 12-step program, let's say it's a 12-step based treatment center, and that 12 steps, what's the basis of the 12 steps? What's the basis of the big book? We could have Chris Freeman, the big book whisperer, chime in here. I call him the big book whisperer. We could have Chris chime in here, but the whole basis is that one addict helping another is the best.
That's right.
You have a 12-step program like that, and then exactly, if you have peer support going on, and then all of a sudden you get to the family program, what is it? It's a therapist. That's family therapy. It's a therapist helping. I'm not saying take away therapeutic services by any means. We definitely need those.
That's a great point right there.
But I'm saying get honest, because if it's one addict helping another, it's peer support. It is not a family program if you do not have family peer supports in there leading the family program. And what gets me hotter than Richard Jones is whenever I go to a treatment center and they tell me that they have a person in long-term recovery leading the family program. That's like me leading an NA group.
Right.
That is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know a few people. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, what I'm saying is that, there's a lot of things that I can walk the same road with you guys. As a family member, I can walk that same road, but at some point there's that fork in the road that comes where I'm not going to be able to help you. And the main thing that I need to make sure that I do as a family advocate, or you guys do as people in recovery and advocates, is that we meet as many people as we can. We know as many people as we can. we reach out into the recovery arena, and families reaching out into the recovery arena to make sure that we meet so many people, so that when I meet somebody that needs some kind of help, I know somebody who can help them, because we cannot be the be all for everyone. I cannot be the be all for, I even think that there should be specific family services for maybe spouses. Or I'm meeting a lot of adult children with parents who are in addiction. They have some very specific needs and helps that they need. So I think those are important. But I wanted to say that for families, you know, if you have to walk away, you have to walk away. But the main important thing of all that, that's all easy to say, but it's really making those decisions and vetting it out and finding that treatment center or finding that sober living before you're actually there. It's finding it. You know, Mark and I, that's one of the reasons I created a card too, was that Mark and I found a treatment center. We found the treatment center that we could afford, that we knew we could send our son to, that he could stay as long as he needed, and whatever that program was at that time. And we said, hey, this is what's available. This is what we can do. And that was it. We found it beforehand.
Right.
And so I think that's really, really important for families to have that peace of mind too, to know, hey, here it is, it's available. And we just shared with our son, we said, here's a card, here's the number. You can walk in at any given time, or you can call us. We'll make sure you have a ride to that treatment center. He was living not in Texas at that time. And we said, you can just walk in. But we went and we picked it out because we were paying. And we knew. We did.
You made the rules.
We made the rules. Because we knew what we could afford. And then also the last thing, you know, when your loved one goes to a treatment center, be aware of the pharmaceuticals, because a lot of times they'll ask you, they'll say, well, we use XYZ pharmacy. Well, that might not be a pharmacy that's covered by your insurance. We had that happen to us. I learned that out of, we were paying massive amounts for pharmaceuticals. And then it turned out our son had insurance, and it wasn't covered by that particular pharmacy. But the pharmacy that was covered could have it taken. I love your dogs.
He had to get in here.
Yes, the pharmacies that would cover it, it was like $5.
Right.
You know, so make sure of that. So I want to give families as much help and hope in that area as we can and empower them.
What's the best way for families to contact you for your peer support?
You know what? They can go on my Facebook page, Marty McLeod, or they can go on my Shop Recovery Stuff Facebook page, or they can go on shoprecoverystuff.com and hit the contact page and just say, hey, Marty, just give me some explanation of, you know, who they are and what they're looking for, and maybe we can help them get connected. I think that's so important for us in the recovery arena, to meet each other, know each other, respect one another for what we do, for what each of us do, because we have a big fire and we need every single kind of hose that we can get to put it out.
Absolutely. 100%. Dwayne, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah. I think you need to make some T-shirts that say Sober for Life Radio with this on there.
You never know,
Hey,
that might show up in your mail.
I just want to say what you're doing is absolutely amazing. It's our honor to have you supporting what we're doing. Great interview, man. You hit a lot of good points, and you got it going on, Marty. You and your husband. What you're doing is amazing. It really is.
Thank you very much.
Honored to be.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your heart and your passion. You know.
Oh, hey, Iggy.
Yes, sir.
I love you too, brother.
I love you, bro. I can't wait to do this some more, actually.
You know, y'all, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me on, and call me when you come to Dallas.
Marty, hold on.
Yes.
Yeah, don't go get out of here.
Call me when you come to Dallas.
I will. But before we part ways, I want to ask you, will you come back again as a guest?
I would, and you know what? I already know what I want to talk about too. There's a shocker. I want to talk about actually giving families some tools, giving them tools actually in their recovery as they pursue some peace amidst the storm and the chaos of addiction, and how to jump off that roller coaster ride. You know, we can talk about that all day long, but until we can convert that into tools that we can actually use, who cares?
That's right. Please, folks.
Hey, I think we need to do an interview with her husband too. You think we can get him on here?
For 15 seconds, maybe.
Unless you're a car.
Yeah, we know he's a big help.
I don't blame him one bit.
We know he's a big help. What's going on
Mark
around?
doesn't know who you are.
Please, folks, if you're out there struggling and you have a loved one
Yes.
that you know is using, please put together a plan.
Yes.
A plan A, B, and C.
Yeah.
You know, Marty outlined what needs to happen. You need to have a plan in advance.
Yeah.
Find some reputable, reliable people like Marty to talk with, to have, you know, a plan of attack in case something horrible happens, or if that window of opportunity opens up and they want treatment. We need to act, because that window of opportunity will close very rapidly.
And you know, Higgy, I'll say this: I'm gonna do this at risk of, you know, Jamie Edwards runs the Refuge of Houston, the Refuge Center of Houston, and I will talk to her. She actually is a family recovery coach. That is her actual job. She doesn't sell T-shirts, but I'm going to take a risk here and say that she would probably be more than willing to do a Facebook Live with me, so that we could go over these points and people could ask us questions about, you know, I'll be more than happy to do that if people would like that.
I would be more than happy to let you use my platform to
You're
do
so
that.
kind. Thank you. I'll talk with her. I could be getting into trouble.
I fully support what you're doing with
Thank you.
shop recovery stuff, what you're doing as a family peer support specialist. We need more people coming up out of the shadows, helping with this epidemic, pandemic, plague, whatever you want to call it. So many people are dying, and we need to be able to unify at some point to help.
Yes.
Help
We've
each
got to equip people where they're at in their real life, in real time, to share recovery, because we've got to equip them to do it where they're at.
Absolutely.
It's too big.
That's right. Look, Dwayne Flex. Dwayne Flex.
You go, brother.
I love it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I love you all. Thank you so much thank you for loving families.
Absolutely. Now, anybody out there, we want to leave you with this. Just know that you're worthy of love, to feel it, give it, and receive it.
Amen.
If you're struggling with addiction, please reach out. You can call the No More Heroin helpline, which is 833-NO-MORE-H. That is 833-666-6734. We are connected with many resources across the country. We try to help everybody to the best of our ability, regardless of insurance. And when we're starting to focus more on sober living with the help of Mr. Dwayne Louder, and anybody that wants to connect with us and try to make a bigger difference, please do. So awesome. Thank you, family. Thank you for watching the Survivor Series on No More Heroin. Such a good interview. Thank you, ma'am. I'm looking forward to doing this again with you.
Thanks, y'all.
Y'all, peace.
All right.
And much love, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
And we're done.